right? All women go through menopause, and so many suffer, not just because of the symptoms, but because of the anxiety around the symptoms, not knowing what they are, where they're coming from, when they're going to end.
The loneliness.
Yeah. Yes, it feels like a very isolated experience. And I always say, I try to contextualize menopause and say, look, from a brain's perspective, at least, it's not that different from puberty or pregnancy. So we are born with a system that connects the brain to the ovaries, the neuroendocrine system. And this system is activated as we go through puberty. Then it comes down, right, for a certain number of years, although everything oscillates month by month every time we have a menstrual cycle. Then if a woman gets pregnant, the system is overactivated, right? There's like a crash and burn after postpartum. And then the same process happens again a little bit in reverse as we go through menopause. So if you think about it, the symptoms are not even that different, right? When you're young, when you're a teenager, you sweat a lot and your temperature changes and you have the mood swings and the strong emotions and the brain fog and whatnot. But there's no celebration of menopause. Everything that's ever been said is doom and gloom. You're old, right? You're wrinkly. You are worthless in a way, and that is ridiculous, completely ridiculous. So I think we really need to change the narrative there.
That's why I have a question regarding that. In 2017, when you created the Women's Brain Initiative, your project, you started studying female brain. What was your personal motivation?
As soon as I was in college and people thought I was mature enough to be given some responsibilities, I started doing research immediately. And my grandmother, at that time, she was showing signs of cognitive impairment that later turned into a diagnosis of dementia. And then her two younger sisters had exactly the same diagnosis. So all three sisters developed Alzheimer's disease and died of it. But their brother did not. And they all lived to the same age, 80s, late 80s. For me, that was terrifying, in part because I rely on my brain for everything. And the idea that I might lose this capacity is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. My mom was terrified. My aunt was terrified. So immediately we started asking this question of, does it matter if you're a woman or a man? Is it worse for women? And with my research, I learned that we've known since 1994 that after getting older, being a woman is the strongest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. And so it's not just that women live longer than men. There has to be something else. What happens in midlife that could potentially explain the higher risk of dementia in women? And so we started looking at midlife women at risk for Alzheimer's, women with a family history or with genetic risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. Which, if you look at women who are perimenopausal, they're starting the transition, and compare them to men of the same age, the red flags are higher. There's more red flags. And if you then look at women who are postmenopausal, not that, 50s, we're talking 50s, and compare them to men of the same age, the red flags for Alzheimer's are more significant. All women go through menopause, but only 20% of women, which is too many, but let's say only in quotes, develop Alzheimer's disease. So there are other factors at play. And that really speaks to a preventative potential, right? So what leads to Alzheimer's? What are the risk factors? And how do we mitigate that risk to avoid getting Alzheimer's?
Okay. So you mentioned the transition that the brain goes through, this neuroendocrine transition, and you've been engaged in explaining to women, especially, and also doctors, that this is a process important to be aware of. what do you think that their main symptoms that women and even doctors should be looking at this point? What are the symptoms that you go, okay, this is looking like brain symptom?
Yes, well, there's one symptom that everybody is familiar with, which is hot flashes when you sweat. But not many people realize that hot flashes are actually brain symptoms.
Hot flashes are a symptom. What else? Hot flashes are, like you said, are more obvious and people
Insomnia.
are.
Yeah, so the second most common, actually the second most common symptom is brain fog. So a lot of women, nearly 2/3 of all perimenopausal and postmenopausal women experience brain fog, which in clinical terms is called subjective cognitive decline, in that you experience a decline in cognitive performance, but if you come for a neuro exam, you will not test as cognitively impaired, right? So there's a range of normality. And if you were up here, you may be down here, but you're not cognitively impaired. So I think it's important to talk about it because so many women really fear that they may be experiencing early onset dementia. Whereas there you go. Like when you have a hard time remembering things or language production fluency, coming up with words, right? Or reduced focus, or also mental fatigue. I hear that a lot when you just feel like your brain is shot. And it's important to talk about it because, it can last years. So we need to know what it is. We need to reassure women that for most women, that is menopause, it's not dementia, right? So depressive symptoms, anxiety, depression, even rage, like very strong emotions.
Yes.
That happens quite a bit, can happen. Insomnia, sleep disturbances, having a hard time falling asleep and staying asleep, which is brutal. Stress, like feeling really stressed and wound up for no reason. And also, I would mention low libido. This is something that's important to discuss because it really can affect the family, right? And well-being and quality of life.
And it's also a brain symptom, right?
Can be, yes. Sometimes it's peripheral because some women, when they go through menopause, they experience vaginal dryness and changes to their reproductive system that may make it difficult to enjoy having an active sex life. But sometimes it's really CNS, the central nervous system. It's just that your brain is tired.
Shut down for business.
Very important to know. So the menopause brain includes a number of things and a number of symptoms that are neurological in nature.
And then you have a feeling that you're losing your mind, and that's what you say in your book. You're not losing your mind, you're getting a new brain. Please explain me what it is, because you say your brain is going to a renovation project and your brain is being remodeled. But please tell me what happens after this messy project. What happens at the end of the tunnel? Is there light at the end of the tunnel?
It looks like the answer may be yes, and outcomes are individual, right? So what the literature so far has shown, and look, we need more research. We really need more research, but this is my interpretation of whatever data we have so far. What we find is that during perimenopause, during the transition, that the brain is really changing up because estrogen is leaving, progesterone is leaving, testosterone is still hanging in there but starting to decline, and the FSH and LH, other hormones that are not so good for the brain, are increasing at very high levels. They're actually not great for brain health. And so the brain needs to adjust to all these changes, especially, we believe, to the change in estrogen concentration, because estrogen is a neuroprotective hormone. And I'm not talking about estrogen therapy. I'm talking about estrogen, the hormone that we make, our bodies make, okay? That kind of estrogen is neuroprotective. It supports a lot of different things inside your brain. It boosts neuronal activity. it makes your neurons grow these little branches that support connectivity, right? It improves blood flow, maintains blood flow to the brain, oxygenation to the brain. It reduces inflammation, reduces oxidative stress. It's like a superhero inside your brain. It's like Wonder Woman. But when Wonder Woman retires, the brain cannot retire. So it needs to switch to alternative routes. And that is a wonderful ability that the brain has. That's called neuroplasticity. However, it takes time. It takes time to adjust. So what we do know is there is pruning, which means that some neurons are lost. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's like the brain says, I don't need you anymore. Goodbye. For menopause, the neurons that the brain doesn't need anymore are all the neurons that allow us to have a menstrual cycle and get pregnant and deliver a baby. And those are a lot of neurons. It takes a huge amount of effort, but at that point, you don't need them anymore. So the brain is like, you know what? This is my chance to do a little spring cleaning, and all these neurons can go. Unfortunately, those neurons are also connecting different parts of the brain that are involved in mood, in sleep, in cognition, in sleep, in stress. These are the same neurons. So it's like your system gets kind of like in a little bit of a shock, but then this new, leaner brain just keep going. And some parts of the brain seem to be getting more connected to each other, especially parts of the brain that are involved in emotional regulation. And again, we need more research, but I'll tell you that it is now an international finding that postmenopausal women have more emotional mastery. They're better at regulating their emotions. And as most women would report, we're much better at giving fewer, you don't care that much. You know, there's a lot of things that used to upset you, alarm you, worry, all this stuff can go, right? Here in America, we say you can give fewer fucks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You give fewer fucks. We say that here too. So
what do you say? What is it in Brazil? What do
Foda-se. That's
okay.
Like I don't care. Don't care
Yeah,
at all.
okay. Oh,
Don't care less.
we say that in Italian. I'm Italian, so we say that in Italian as well. But in reality, there is actual research showing that empathy increases after menopause. The ability to selectively down-regulate your response to negative stuff is increased, whereas your ability to be happy remains the same. And some studies in Europe have shown that the level of happiness and life contentment is actually higher on average after menopause than before menopause, for some women at least, right? It's an average. I like that idea. I like it very much. I think
now understanding that there's this whole brain situation going on that makes women so desperate of like, when am I going to get my brain back? I need my brain to work. I miss my capacity of being, you know, sometimes you miss a word in a meeting if you're working, and then you seem like you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. That makes women so afraid and embarrassed, and you know, it's not easy. I totally put myself into this situation. I understand that, but what can we do? You know, what the things you recommend women can do to take care of our brains during perimenopause and also post-menopause?
so. There is no one size fits all approach, which is also what I try to convey in the book. The different women have different needs and different medical histories and different risk tolerance as well. And all of that is important to take into account. There are some women who just come to us and want a prescription for hormone therapy. There are some women who don't want to take hormones at all, right? And then there are some women who cannot take hormones because they don't work for them, or maybe they have a history, family history, or medical history that is significant and needs to be accounted for. So it's important to know that there are different things. Number one, lifestyle is important, right? Your baseline is important. If you approach menopause and you have all sorts of issues and you're taking already 15 prescription medications, menopause is not going to be a walk in the park, right? So it's important to think about lifestyle as a preventative for certain things. Number one, a healthy lifestyle can also support an easier menopause, but also
That's scientifically shown, right? It's
yeah,
not just imagination, that you,
no,
because people think like, oh, every doctor tells me I need to have a healthy lifestyle, but actually science shows that if you have
yeah,
a healthy lifestyle, you're gonna have a better brain
yeah,
outcome
oh
and
yeah.
symptoms.
Yes, yes. And in fact, I can send you a reference for that. One that everybody agrees upon is exercise. Then there's avoiding toxins. Environmental toxins are now recognized as a trigger for hormonal disruptions, but also dementia and worse cognitive and brain health outcomes.
And then that, by that you mean like plastic, bisphenol, this kind of stuff
There
that
are
we
also
have.
air pollution. Then stress. There's more and more research showing that chronic stress is also a disruptor, especially for women in midlife. So menopause, we have to chill out. Lack of sleep is recognized as a trigger for Alzheimer's plaques in the brain. More research is always needed, but so far the evidence points to a negative effect. And diet as well. It's hard to, because there are so many diets, right? But I think what people agree on is that processed foods are bad for your brain, and they have been linked with an increased risk of dementia many times. So I think prioritizing a diet that is really focused on whole foods, right, and minimizing processed foods, fast foods, sugary beverages, man-made junk food that,
So alcohol.
you know, nobody wants me to say this, but I do not drink a drop of alcohol.
Either.
Oh, good. There you go. So basically, I just don't drink it because it's really bad for your brain and is linked to a higher risk of breast cancer than taking hormone therapy.
And very few people know that. And when you're going through menopause, for many women, drinking is a way of relaxing. Like, oh my God, just let me have a wine after work because I'm so exhausted, and ends up that it's not good for you at the end of the day.
No, it's not good. It actually may make the insomnia worse. There are studies showing that you think that it's going to help you maybe relax and fall asleep, but effectively it increases your chances of being up at 2 in the morning. So it would be best to be
Yeah, I
careful.
know it's bad news. I know people hate to hear that.
Yeah, they're here to hear. Also, it's case by case, right? There are some women who sleep beautifully, but many women don't.
Yes.
So,
So how old are you now? 46 or 47? 46? Are you perimenopausal already?
no.
No? But are you taking care of your brain already? Are
Yes,
you
oh my God. I have been taking care of my brain since college.
Tell
Everything
me
I
what to do, because I'm gonna follow all your steps. How does you look? How does your day look like? What do? You wake up in the morning. What time do you wake up?
6.
What's your routine to take care of your brain and your health?
My routine is that I've been eating very consistently for 20 years. I'm a vegetarian. I have been a vegetarian for the most of the past 20 years. My mom is a very strict vegetarian. I was raised that way, but I do not judge. Whatever you want to eat, eat. I'm really just whole foods. That works for me, but it's important to make sure that you eat enough of all the different nutrients.
You
And
don't eat any animal products, not even eggs and.
sometimes, yes, sometimes. So I'm an Italian vegetarian. I'm not vegan.
Okay, just
So eggs, sometimes a little fish. I take care of my daughter in the morning. I do my meditation. I meditate every day, daily. I have a few meditations that I really like. I have breakfast with Lily. We do not eat any processed food. I cook pretty much all the time. I make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us. I pack lunchbox so she's healthily. We focus on antioxidants and fiber, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So there's a lot of fresh fruits and veggies and plant-based foods in the house at all times. I love a green juice. I always have a green juice in the morning. Then I work a lot. I work long hours, but I always take time to exercise. So I work out.
What do you do for exercising?
So I used to love going to the gym, but then when Lily was born, that was it. My schedule exploded, and whatever time I have is for her. So we now have a gym in the house. We're very lucky. We have some things in the house. So I have a treadmill, which I really enjoy. I run maybe twice a week, 2-3 times a week. I have a reformer Pilates. I love yoga and Pilates. I try to keep active because I sit a lot for work. I'm always sitting in front of a computer. So I also get massages. I like acupuncture. You know, inflammation in the neck and shoulders is so close to your brain that I really worry. I also try to protect my eyes because now there's evidence that when you lose your hearing and you lose your eyesight, that's actually also a risk factor for dementia. And so I have these blue lenses. These are not reading glasses, but they're more like a block.
To protect the blue lights.
Yes. I don't have any plastic in the kitchen, like zero. Everything is glass. Yeah, ceramic, cast iron. Yeah, and water is important. Water is a major source of potential pollutants. So we have a water filter in the house.
There's a lot of questioning about hormone replacement therapy right now. So we're all discussing this a lot. This is just because menopause has been spoken about. So then the therapies are also being addressed. And women think that, so if the lack of estrogen is causing all this mess and other hormones as well, is replacing them helpful?
It's a really good question. So, yeah, and help me out here because I know that I have been misquoted many times on the internet, that people take what I say to really push hormone therapy on people, which I have never done, not once. So this is important. When I talk about estrogen as a neuroprotective hormone, I am talking about endogenous estrogen. It's the estrogen that our bodies make as part of a system, right? Exogenous hormones, including hormone therapy, birth control, that is potentially helpful, but it needs to be tested. It's more nuanced, right? Everything that you introduce in the body will necessarily have different effects than what the body is making on its own. So we really need to understand what's happening there. Now, hormone therapy is approved and recommended for relief of hot flashes, right, and night sweats, for prevention of osteoporosis, which is not brain related, but I'll put it out there, for relief of genitourinary syndrome. But when it comes to brain health, it's also, at least here, is off-label indicated for support of disturbed sleep, if obviously the sleep disturbances are due to menopause and not to something else, otherwise it's not going to work, and for relief of mild depressive symptoms.
Treatment for brain fog, not as a treatment for brain.
So it is not approved for treatment of brain fog, and it is not approved. Well, let me tell you this, as of 2024, it is now actually recommended for dementia prevention and cognitive support for women who are going through menopause prematurely. So before or around age 45. That can happen because of primary ovarian insufficiency. Your body just does not make enough of the hormones, and related conditions, or because of surgical menopause. For other women, hormone therapy is not currently recommended for support of cognitive function or for Alzheimer's prevention. According to professional societies, we need more research. So we're working as hard as we can to provide the research And it's,
Perimenopausal, the message is don't panic.
don't
As
panic. Do not panic. Hormone therapy is a good asset. It's a good thing to keep in mind. So many women were scared away from using it, but professional societies right now, they do say that it is the first line of defense against hot flashes, and that the benefits really outweigh the risks for women who can take hormone therapy. There are a few non-hormonal medications that are available. There are some supplements and botanicals. Some women really like them and they work for them. That's what I would try first. I would go the botanical route, but this is my own personal preference. It's really very individual, and there is no right or wrong. That is very important, because now on social media, there's, people who say absolutely do not take hormones, and people were like, you must take hormones, it's the only way. And I think the reality is much more reasonable, right? It's a lot more nuanced, and there's room for everybody. There's room for.
The most important thing, I think, is to understand that you're not alone on your symptoms, because the feeling that you get at first is like, what's happening to me?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's just me. And when you start talking to other women,
Yeah.
and then you realize it's not just you, then it just makes everything calmer. And just to figure out that your brain can actually come out, happier, like you said, afterwards.
Yeah.
Empathic. That's what we want for life, after all, right? We want to be happy.
Absolutely. Listen, I think as women, we are used to going through a lot.
Yes.
I think menopause is really just one more tune that we learn to dance to. And this is not discounting the symptoms. I think that it's very important to seek medical help and medical care, right? But just know that you'll make it through it. So it's important to know that. I think it's very reassuring. And to your point, certainly we're not alone, right? At least 80% of all women experience at least one neurological symptom during menopause.
Wow.